Raptor Lake refresh from Intel. Supposed to beat out the 13th gen. So let's see what this refresh is all about. Stay tuned, y'all. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are in the world, you know it is JJ and JJ's PC Builds. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. What we mean by 4,000 watch hours, watch the videos from beginning to end, would be much appreciated, would help out the channel and help us grow, and would help me get better cameras. And if you have already subscribed and you're just a recent subscriber, make sure, well, not make sure, but we want to thank you for being a recent subscriber. Welcome to the family. Welcome to JJ's PC Builds. And my veteran subscribers, much love to y'all. And thank y'all for what you all do. Now, let's get to the tax and the brass of everything and discuss. Let me bring the microphone a little bit closer. I kind of, one of these days I'm just going to get me a big old microphone to shove in my face like this, and that's all you're all going to see is a big old microphone shoved in my face like that. But that's the reason why I got the small microphone, so y'all can see my face, so y'all ain't surprised. And don't worry, I know I need to shave too. It's coming, so bear with me. Okay, let's go ahead and just jump right into the brass tacks of the 14th gen, rumored. It's still in a rumored stage until it becomes a for real stage, but something tells me, the way I've been hearing it, that it's going to become a for real stage. Let's jump to the action screen and see what's going on. Alright, we pulled it up for you just to get a little head start on it at WCC Tech. Intel 14th Gen Raptor Lake refresh desktop CPU rumored to clock up to 6.2 gigahertz. Okay, now I want everybody to understand something. No matter how far it clocks up, it's only going to give you a certain amount of percentage as the clocks go up to give it to you in the plus, but it's not going to be like it's gang busting FPS. You know, the higher your clocks go, that's not how it works at all. There's a lot behind that that's going to give you that boost that you're looking for. You know, there's a lot of things that you need that's behind you to get that boost, to get that clock to the clock to go up, to get your FPS to go up and everything else. And first start with your RAM. That's where you first start with, is your RAM. I mean, if you want to, you know, you want your PC processor to support your GPU, you first start with your random access memory, RAM. And make sure you get your drink and you got your snacks with you. Which I do. But when it comes to, you know, everything's not all about the GPU. I hate to tell you this. Me, after running for several months of years, running integrated graphics, it's not all about the discrete graphics card. It's not all about the VRAM on the discrete graphics card. Has nothing to do with that. It's all about your dedicated RAM to your PC. Now, y'all are thinking that I'm crazy, but actually I'm not. I proved that in a video a while back, that the more dedicated RAM you take away from your PC, the harder your GPU struggles. Your discrete graphics card, the harder it struggles. Okay, if you were to take 99.9% of your discrete RAM away from your processor, guess what happens to your discrete graphics card? It struggles. It brings your FPS. Let's say you're getting a gangbuster 300 to 400 FPS, and it drops your FPS down to 5. Because all of a sudden, the discrete RAM on your computer, 99.9% gets used up. And you're looking at it like, well, isn't the VRAM supposed to be picking up that slack to keep the FPS up there? Yes and no. And that's how you learn the hard way. Most of your, and this is where everybody seems to get it wrong. Most of your VRAM is shared with your discrete RAM that's on your PC. You still share an abundant amount of it, but not all of it. You're still sharing a part of your VRAM with your discrete RAM. Okay? So, yes, it's true, the faster you have your dedicated RAM to your PC, the faster you get it, and the more or less you're bound to have bottlenecks and stuff like that. And as long as you got a great processor, yes, it is true. But now getting back to the facts of the 14 gen processor Raptor Lake refresh, is it going to be good enough? Let's say you pair it with the 4090, the RTX 4090, you pair it with that, and then your 4090 starts to bottleneck. Not the processor, the GPU, dedicated graphics card, starts bottlenecking. What do you do then? Well, you figure out why it's bottlenecking. You're not going to bottleneck the 4090. I'm just bringing that up as hypothetical. Okay, but what if this 14th gen processor bottlenecks the RTX 4090? What if it bottlenecks the 7900 XTX? What are you going to do then? Now you got a processor that's actually going to bottleneck your GPU instead of your GPU bottlenecking your processor. Well, it's going to be running the processor is going to be running at 100%, and it's going to definitely be taxing on your graphics card to be at 100% plus. So, I don't know. 6.2 gigahertz put up onto a 3.3 gigahertz graphics card? I don't know. And you can get between well, let's do the math. Let's do the math. And my mathematics is a little bit different from what you all are being taught. But the thing is you take your 6.2, you divide that by 2, and that gives you 3.1. That gives you a 3.1 gigahertz advantage. What I mean by 3.1 gigahertz advantage, basically you can get it, you can stay within 3 to 4 gigahertz on your graphics card and not bottleneck. Okay, with this processor you can stay between 3 and 4 gigahertz on your graphics card, and you should not bottleneck. So how I come to that conclusion, basically the graphics card, all I did was cut it in half. All I did was take the processor, cut it to 50%, and that gave me the 3.1, gave it at 50%, because people out there now these days are not going to run their processor at 100%. Now, if you get up to 50%, With your GPU, your discrete graphics card, being at 100%, now your processor's starting to bottleneck, the GPU. So the GPU bottlenecking the processor starts bottlenecking the GPU. You get up to 50%, that's a halfway point. After that, it starts 1% down. Starts bottlenecking 1% down. But if you're running at, let's say, your processor's, your graphics card running at 100% and your processor's running at between 5 and 7%, that means you're getting 100% with at least 5 to 7%, maybe 1 to 1.7 milliseconds of delay. About 1.5, 1.7 milliseconds of delay. Then it's not really noticeable, so you shouldn't be having stuttering or anything else. But as long as you can keep it at the minimum between 5% and 25% right there, your processor, and keep your GPU at 100%, your discrete graphics card at 100%, then you should have a smooth gameplay. How do I know all this? Well, let me tell you something. I spent a lot of time looking at the numbers, feeling out the numbers where the nice happy medium is, and believe it or not, even with this 4070, I hit it at 100%. The most clocks I got out of this for the GPU was 3.60 gigahertz out of this GPU. Very impressed. And that's on Second Life. So I got a 3.6 gigahertz on Second Life. Alright. Now, you think that's impossible? Actually, it is. Because the demand for OpenGL and DirectX 12 is totally different. So, OpenGL does a lot less clock swapping than DirectX 12. So, and also too, Furmark is a testing point for OpenGL anyway. So, and coupled with OCCT, you got two right there that's going to take and put a total 99.9% stress on your PC to see if it's going to hang or not within a matter of 15 and 30 minutes. So, comes down to it, I have my ways of testing without having to run into gameplay to see if my PC is going to hold up to the test of time for at least 15 to 30 minutes without having no issues. And so far, I've held at 30 minutes with no downclocking scenarios. That's really good the way I got it set up right now. But let's get back to the Intel Core 6.2 gigahertz. Now, the question's going to be, is that single core or is that multi-core? Is that all P cores or all E cores? Or how is that going to work? Let's see if we can get something going. Okay, so this says the Intel 14 Gen Raptor Lake CPU, desktop CPU, to clock anywhere between 6.2 and 6.5 gigahertz. Okay, and this is supposed to be the step up from the Intel 13th Gen Raptor Lake chips. So basically going from the 13 to the 14 on the same platform, it's supposed to go from 6.0 gigahertz to 6.5 gigahertz on an overclock. Okay, so let's see what else it gives you. Let's see, based upon the rumors, will not include more than 8 plus 16 core configuration, but is expected to feature some like new SKU, mainly 6 plus 8 and a 2 plus 8 SKU configuration. Not bad. Which can be marketed as an i5 or an i5 or Core i3 tier design. These may or may not be actual launch SKUs and can be internal test drivers. So, you know, who knows? It, like I said, it's just a leak. And so, you know, they're looking at basically when it comes to the i9 13900K, which goes from 5.8 to 6 gigahertz. Okay, now they're looking at the refresh to go from 6.2 to 6.5 gigahertz, you know, and a TB 3.0 frequency remains to be seen. It's probably going to be higher or close to the Ryzen 7003X 3D chips, but with much more power. You know, it's coming with a cost. So we already know that it's going to have a high cost on it. I mean, it looks like that, you know, this segment right here looks like they're doing workstation roadmap, which makes no sense to me if it's a desktop. You know, why would they add that if it's a desktop? Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to go through their chart, WCCF Tech chart, and look at where we are at today. Okay, let's see, Raptor Lake right here. Okay. Gotta love computers. Okay, so that's the Raptor Lake refresh for 2022. Now, you go on to the 2023, and, you know, you're looking at the 24 core, 32 threads, you know, and then you got 8P core and 16E cores, which this doesn't make total sense to me. See, you got 24 core. Okay, so 8 plus 16 gives you 24 core, and it gives you 32 threads, which, if it was designed like Ryzen, this would be 24 core and 48 threads. We're missing a bunch of threads here, people. So what they did was I can't believe this. Basically, they took the 16, cut it into half, so they give you half of the amount of threads to equal up with the cores. You know, basically, why don't Intel just say like this? Why don't you just give them 24 cores and 24 threads? That's basically what you're saying, but you think that you're giving somebody 8 more threads by making it 32. Okay, instead of doing a 2 plus 2 configuration, 24 cores and 48 threads, which would have been more sufficient than doing 24 cores and 32 threads. That's, I mean, still, I mean, if you noticed with AMD, the Ryzen, they do a 6-core 12 thread, or they do an 8-core 16 thread, or they do a 12-core 24 thread, right? So, or if they do a 24 core, they're going to do a 48 thread. I don't see why they would do a 36 instead of a 48. So that means you're going to cut off that extra threads that's going to support the processor, which is going to support the motherboard and everything else. So you're going to cut that down just to keep it below 6.5 gigahertz. Makes no sense. Makes no sense to me at all. Why you would make that 32 thread. But that's your business. That's how you're selling it. And looks like Arrow Lake's got the same thing. 24 core, 32 thread. Panther Lake, that was 2024. 2025 looks like 40 core and 48 thread. Obviously, they went up and only gave you 8 more threads. So that means, so basically you got a 40 core and 8 thread, not 48 threads, 8 thread CPU. And then you go to 80 core and 96 with the Beast Lake at 2026. Okay, so basically you're giving Beast Lake at Threadripper speed in 2026. So everybody's got to wait until 2026 to be paying $4,000 for a processor that's going to be 80 cores and 96 threads. So you're going to be paying $4,000 for a processor in 2026. So do get ready for that. Especially when they go up past the 24 core and 32 threads. Past Arrow Lake, it's going to be like $2,000 for a Panther Lake, and it's going to be like $4,000 for a Beast Lake. To me, I don't see it. You're going to see me way back here in Coffee Lake or something like that. You're going to see me in either Alder Lake or, probably Alder Lake, the 16 core and 24 threads, or the 8 core and 16 threads, where that makes more sense right here at Rocket Lake in 2021 for 5.3 gigahertz. Okay, you're going to see me right about here. That's where I'm going to be. Is because they're actually using a processor the right way instead of all this garbage that they're putting the wrong way. But don't get me wrong, they got good processors and everything else. It's not garbage. It's just my thoughts right now is just, it's astronomical, what they're doing right here. And to me, I just don't see it. They're going to have an i9 14900K that's going to outpast a 13900K, and now they might come out with the 13950K. See, that's even more interesting. You might want to stick around and see what they got coming out for this. For the 14th gen, if they're going to take the 13900K and move it up to the 13950K. Okay, and they go from, looking at here, 24 cores to 32 threads, right to 24 cores and 32 threads. And then they're going to slap on another $150 to $160 onto this processor. Just because it gets 200 more megahertz or 500 more megahertz. So that's what they're going to do. I don't foresee this going anywhere except for people saying, no, we're going to stick with the 13900K. You know, we can still get it up to 6.4 gigahertz, you know, without having to pay the extra price. You know, I mean, I've already heard this the 13900K being clocked out at 6.5 gigahertz. So this right here, this refresh at 6.2 gigahertz, what refresh? Unless those clocks are baseline at 6.2 gigahertz for base clock, and then it boosts up to 6.5 gigahertz, that's a different story. Now you're given a base clock at 6.2 gigahertz. But, you know, some of these chips, they base out at 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 gigahertz, and then they run it up. You can run it up to 5.8 and 5.9 on some of them. If you're running base clockwise, you can run 5.7, 5.8 without running into a heating issue. But once you get over 6 gigahertz with the 13900K, you're looking at a heater box. So, I don't need a 200 watt chip. I don't need to run a 200 watt chip in my PC just to game with. This 65 watt processor I got in here, which will go up to 96 on the max, that's all I need. I don't need anything else. I mean, it's less than 100 watts, and usually if you got 100 watts, 100 watts is basically really nothing. So, and with the GPU, total of 300 watts. So, and with the added cooling I got in here, with the good amount of fans, I got a 6-fan cooling system for the motherboard, and I got a single fan for the processor. You know, fan configuration with a heat sink, and I got 2 fans on the graphics card. With all that configuration and with the push-pull system, it doesn't get hot in that case. It's like a wind tunnel. 3 big fans. I got 360 millimeter total of fans in the front, and in the back I got 360 millimeters going out. 360 going in, 360 going out. And this Ryzen 7 5700X, you know, it rocks. So I can't complain on that. But, you know, I mean, I'm not looking to get gangbuster. I mean, that's only pulling out max at, you know, the frequency of 4.650 gigahertz. Okay, it's not pulling gangbuster frequencies because I did not overclock it. It's running on auto. It goes from 3.4 gigahertz up to 4.650 gigahertz. It fluctuates. So this way the processor has room to go back and forth and not get hot sitting at one frequency. So that's where you get into the problem of heating and everything else. It's the frequencies. Well, not so much the frequencies. It's keeping it consistent at one frequency instead of backing it down and having a fluctuation. You know, I'd rather have a little bit of fluctuation in there. Yeah, my FPS might fluctuate a little bit. Who cares? As long as I got enough FPS to play the game, I can care less about the rest. As long as you got at least 60 FPS or greater, you can play a game. Some games don't require anything more than 60 FPS. So as long as you got 60 FPS, you got 1440p, and you got 4K, and they're getting you above 60 FPS, you got your system well built, boom, you're done. Don't worry about it for the next 5 years. Don't even worry about buying anything new. Skip a generation, then buy something new. Always remember, you start with one generation, skip a generation, go to the next generation. Now, if you got a problem with the next generation, you always can slide back to the previous generation. And that way you can go and say, okay, well, there's something in the next generation I didn't want. Now I'm going to slip back to the previous generation. I'm going to get something from there. And then I'm going to wait and skip another generation. So usually it works out like that. Sometimes people are so happy with what they got, they can skip one generation and go up to the next generation or the following generation. It's basically what I'm going to be doing, because it looks like, with 14th gen, okay, and you got the AM4 series, you got the AM5 series, and then you're going to have the AM6 series. I'm going to wait to see what the AM6 series has got. So I'm going to be on AM3 or it's AM4. I'm going to skip the 5 and I'm going to go right to the 6. And if I don't like anything on the 6, I can roll back to the 5, since now the 5 by then will be a seasoned amount of drivers and software that has been out there that's actually working well with the hardware. I go from that point on. But if you got something that comes out that's brand new, and believe it or not, the software is running so well with the hardware, it's a buy you have to buy. It's stuff that you have to buy. So you can play it two ways. You can go from one generation to the next, or you can skip over a generation, save up for what you really want, and then get something you really want that's going to last you another 1 or 2 generations, and then, skip over that way. Or if you got a hole in your pocket and you got money to burn, you can go generation to generation to generation to generation, then that's up to you. It's whatever you can afford. Okay? Being a consumer, whatever you can afford is what you go by. Okay? And if you feel that you find something out there you can go by and you can afford, then go for it. Me, so far I can tell you, I'm getting ready to think about going to, in the future, going to the Intel side and trying them on the next generation. Probably, I'll say the 13th generation, 13900K i9, and go from there. So when I get the motherboard, a good motherboard for that i9 processor, that means if it's really good, that means the 14th gen will plug into it. So the 13th and 14th gen will share the same platform. If that's what I'm hearing right, unless Intel changes the platform for the 14th gen, who knows? But if they don't, you can use the same platform and they keep that platform going for the next 5 years, then that means you get 5 years worth of upgrades and updates on the same platform, which is the LGA 1700, I think. So, something to think about. Now, with Ryzen, the reason why they changed their platform is because they wanted to go pinless. And they wanted to go from the AM4 to the AM5 series. But from the AM4 to AM5, there's no pins on the bottom of the processor for the AM5. To me, I'm going to be honest with you, and I keep coming back to this, and I keep saying this. Here, let me pull you guys back up into the screen. Okay. This right here, this is a pinless. This is an Intel processor. This is an i5. This is an i5 2400. This is an i5 2400. Pinless. Okay, the thing is this. That's the same processor I use in this Dell over here. That's just a backup processor for this Dell. So, if that processor ever goes out, I got a backup. So I don't need a backup because they're dirt cheap. They're $5 for the processor. So, and it runs Windows 10 just fine. So I don't have a problem on Windows 10 either. So, when it comes to the pinless to the pin, I can tell you get more surface contact with the pins than you do the pinless. You might be able to get more stuff on the, more connections onto the processor using a pinless, but as far as connectivity, I still think with it being pinless, there's going to be static. It's going to be static charged underneath that processor, with it connecting onto those feet that's on the motherboard to the processor itself. There's always room for error to where you get one pin that accidentally connects to the wrong pins, but with it having pins, there's no room for error. That means each pin will connect in the right sockets. Now, I know Intel's been using a socketless, pinless approach for years, but the thing is too, I really still have my faith in the pins that compared to the pinless. I know it doesn't, I know you have a better chance with your processor with it being pinless, but I still feel that, you get more connectivity with the pins than you do pinless. Really, I really do. Because I'm always hearing that if you put too much pressure on the GPU on the motherboard, or the processor on the motherboard, you put too much pressure on it using the heat sink and pushes too much, and you tighten it down too tight, can cause those pins to push in a different direction. Those pins only take so much pressure down at the bottom before it bottoms out and pushes the pin over to the next slot. I've heard of people doing that before too. How can you over tighten something when it's very simple to just tighten it? Especially if they got a stop block on there. Basically you can tighten it down to a certain amount, and then it stops itself, and then it's rest of it's spring loaded. The pressure on it's spring loaded instead of being, the pressure being on direct contact. But I like the spring pressure loaded. That right there, that's a little bit better, I think, for those, because that way it keeps it consistent and stuff like that. But I still hear of the motherboards and the pinless, them burning up. That causes an issue there too. I ain't never heard of a pin processor yet till today, or any day, that a pin processor ever caught fire. It probably has. There's probably one out there, somebody done overclocked it, or they left the cooler, the heat sink off of the processor or something, and it caught fire and it got smoked. Okay, but I ain't never heard of a pin socket melting unless you're jamming too much power through there. That would be the only way it could melt that. But again, I know I'm going off on a tinge, so y'all just bear with me on that. I'm just giving you scenarios of the matter of the fact of between a pin processor and a non-pin processor, and the fires they were having, AMD was having with the X3D chips, the AM5 X3D chips, compared to the pin processors they had for the AM4 series and the 5800 X3D. How come that didn't catch fire? Can you all figure that out? Hello? Anybody tell me why the 5800 X3D never caught fire? Who knows? So, unless you can catch that fire, that's a different story. Maybe they need to go for their playbook and figure out what they did on the 5800 X3D to keep it from catching on fire. They should use that for the 7000 series X3Ds. So this way they don't have any more fires. Maybe they should use that playbook, and run from that. But anyway, like I said, it is what it is. But when it comes to the 14th gen processor, we'll see. And I'm going to start saving my money up to get me the motherboard for the 14th gen. Hopefully I can get a 20 to 24 phase VRM. So this way I got a lot of power that the motherboard can handle. Maybe get something with 4 M.2 slots. Hopefully they'll all be running at PCIe 5.0 X4. Hopefully I can get something with dual graphic card slots, PCIe 4.0 or 5.0 X16. And get a motherboard to where the motherboard is the SSD on the M.2 is separate from the graphics card, so they run in different lanes, so you don't have a bottleneck condition. That's what I'm kind of thinking of. But maybe one day we'll get there to where they have their own lanes for the graphics card compared to the M.2 drive, and instead of them connecting them together or connecting one on a coprocessor for 3.0 action, they would have it directly connected to the processor on their own lanes, to where you have full function of the PCIe 4.0 or 5.0 X16s for the M.2, and you don't share it with the graphics card. Like they do this one. So basically you get 4.0 X8 and then you'll get 4.0 X4, for the M.2 and the PCIe X16 slot. So if I were to couple those two in the upper section, then I would be forced to share the M.2 with the graphics card. Instead, I put mine in the 3.0 X4 slot that's down at the bottom for my operating system, and I'm getting okay speeds. Now, this is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to show y'all. And I haven't monkeyed with this or anything else. I'm just going off on a tinge a little bit because I seen this the other day, and I was kind of testing this, and for some reason it seemed like Crystal Discmark, decided it wanted to run good. So now We're going to go ahead and just X out of this. And we'll move over to the action screen. This is set at one time. It's one run, 1 gigabyte configuration. The main drive at megabytes. So you're going to see everything at megabytes. So let's see, the settings. Profile set at default. This is default setting to Crystal Disk Mark. Okay. So that's just to let you know. It's at default. We're going to go ahead and run this. You'll be surprised. I ran this one time. I ran this one time already. So let's see what we get. And this is from the 3.0 X4 slot. Now, the read looks like it's pretty good read, as you can see. I just wanted you all to see this real quick. You know, we're going to go through one by one, and y'all are going to see this is fully legit. And, you know, I'm still going to try to get in touch with Crucial about this, because I don't know if this is true or false, but Crystal Disk Mark is telling me this. But also, too, the cache hot swap on this is pretty big, from what I hear. So, me getting these kind of numbers out of a P2, 1 terabyte, P2, and using their programming for this M.2 drive. They have their own programming for their M.2 drive. And it is awesome. So from what I'm seeing right now, if I'm getting these kind of speeds at default settings, I'm happy with it. I am tickled pink with all. Look at this. I mean, on the read side, you get 8 gigahertz on the read side. The write side, you get 7.6 gigahertz. Okay. You know, goes down there from 7.7 to 6.6, and then you get 944 to 904, and then 366 to 337. You know, the writes are always going to be the reads are always going to be higher than the writes. So do remember that. So, but from what I see right here, those are the numbers I'm getting. I'm happy 100% with that. Now, since I showed you all that, now let's go to the what I'm using to get it up there. And this is part of a Crucial, and this is a part of Crucial. This is the Storage Executive. So we're going to show you that too. So here's the Storage Executive. Okay, they got what they call the Momentum Cache right here, and that's what I use to enhance the performance of that drive. And it's all up to date. Just to let you know, it's a really good program to use. So if you got a Crucial M.2 drive, get the Storage Executive. Go down to the Momentum Cache. Turn it on. You'll get more performance. I'm just letting you know that, because I get more performance out of mine. And I'm not nuts, so just to let you know that. So, you want more performance off of your M.2 drive, and you got a Crucial P2, P3, P4, P5, whatever. Whatever one you got. Get the program. Enable the Momentum. Make sure it's compatible with the Momentum upgrade. I can tell you P2 is. I'm not sure about the rest of them, but I'm pretty sure that they got P5, 1 terabyte. You can do the Momentum with it too. So even if it's P5, it's going to be a faster speed than what I have. And then when you check it with Crystal Dismark, I'm sure that M.2 SSD will be flying. Mine flies just the way it is, and I'm happy with it. It doesn't bottleneck me or anything else. I've checked for every little thing you can think of when it comes to this PC. And when it comes to this motherboard right here, this Asus Strix motherboard, the B550-A, yeah. There's a couple more things I want to do with it. Like get me another M.2 drive and have that 4.0 X4, and I want to use that for a virtual memory drive and lighten the load that's on the operating system, so more of it's directed to that M.2 drive for the virtual memory. So it takes a lot of load away from the storage of programs and everything else, and puts it onto a separate drive. It's something in the future I'm going to be testing. I've done that before, to where years ago I took a regular hard drive, like let's say a 40 or 60 gigabyte or 40 megabyte or whatever. What I did was I turned around, I used that for a virtual drive. 99% of it, not 100%, 99% of it. Where everybody gets the mistake made is they use 100% of the drive. And then what happens is you have to have a file share in there. Enough room for a little file share. So if you don't have that, then you're basically just spinning your gears. Me, I'll take it to 90. I'd say I'd do it at about 98%. Give it a 2%, share. And that's all you really need. And that means that drive will never get corrupted, because there's nothing else that can fit on there that could ever corrupt it. So now, another test I wanted to try was to take that same drive, have 1 terabyte on it, but I want to do a memory file compression, a virtual memory file compression, to where it's going to take and turn that 1 terabyte drive into a 2 terabyte drive, where it's going to compress it and compress it down to half, and then give you the other half and give you another terabyte. I don't know if it can be done, but I'm sure going to try. And if I get it to get going, I'm going to take y'all along with me on that one. So, but just to let you know, on Crystal Dismark, I'm happy with it. I know I went off to the edge with doing the Intel 14th gen, but it is what it is. I went off the end. So let's bring you back to where we're supposed to be at. If you're looking for a new type Fangle processor, 14 gen will be coming out hopefully sooner or later. You can purchase it, pay a hefty price for it. You know it's going to be high. Oh, it's going to be high. So, but anyway, let me go ahead and get out of here. I just want to thank you all for watching the video today. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And thank you to all the new subscribers. Welcome to the family. And the veteran subscribers, thank you for all you do, telling everybody to come on down and join the family here on JJ's PC Builds, and watching all the videos beginning to end. It is much appreciated. Until the next time, and the next video, this is JJ on JJ's PC Builds. We will see you on the next one.